loss is a loss, but at least when you can see development on both sides of the ball, that's a positive.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade, and if you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right place. We are a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today is our post-game Louisville show, and we're talking about BC's 38-24 loss to the Cardinals in Kentucky. This was a closer game than I think a lot of us expected. So what are we going to talk about on today's show? We're going to get into the loss. We'll talk about who stood out, what plays really kind of defined this loss, where we saw development questions I had, because there was a few things that I was like, what is BC doing here? And we'll get into all sorts of different ins and outs of this game. So if you have comments, leave them in the comment section on the side. And please make sure you like and subscribe before you head out. Now, BC loses 38-24 in this game. It was a game I had predicted that BC was going to lose by quite a bit. And credit to them, they showed up. That was the big piece of this, was that BC showed up in this game. From the get-go, we saw BC taking those drives that took, what was it, 14 out of the first 15 minutes of the game was the ball was held by BC. Now, flip side of the coin was the 1 minute that Louisville had the ball, Isaac Brown ran it for 73 yards. They scored 2 plays later. But BC was trying something, which was to control the ball, control the clock. And for the first half, I thought it was working pretty well. The defense, as I just mentioned, they had a little bit of the issues with the explosives. There was quite a few explosives in this game, including one that sealed it at the end of the game by K'Wan Brown. But they also had their moments too, because you saw big stops. They had some stops in the first half and many more in the second half. You had turnovers. You had an interception by KP Price. You had a fumble recovery by KP Price. And at times, the defense got some good pressure up there. I'd be amiss if I didn't mention Chris Marable, who had at least, as much as I can think of, at least 2 swatted passes. So that was a positive. On the other side, they let up 500 yards of offense, and they could, at times, were really struggling. I do think they looked better, but it was like, I was talking to Mitch Wolf, if you've listened to our show, and he's like, it's like a pitcher runs. That's kind of what this defense looked like tonight. Like, they just, Miller Moss, passing wise, didn't look all that impressive. He didn't really do a whole lot other than when they got the ball, deep in their zone. But the running attack, they rushed for, I think, over 350 yards, if I'm correct. Pulling it up right now. They rushed for 317 yards for the Cardinals. So clearly, that wasn't working either. Now, the crazy part of this game was that BC was within a touchdown up until 2 minutes left in this game. Remember, this was a 25.5-point spread. After watching them get clobbered by Clemson, Pitt, and play poorly against UConn, I really didn't think they had much of a chance of slowing down an offense that just beat Miami a week ago. But credit to BC again. They were able to hold in to make some stops here. And when they needed the stops for the most part near the end of the game, they were making them, which was pretty impressive. That was a really good sign to see. I saw TJ Green making some plays, and there were some good plays up front. So that was a positive. Now the offense, that's the other piece of this coin. You had Grayson James out there, and I didn't see when it happened, but clearly by the second half of this game, he was a very different Grayson James. He looked like he was hurt, and he couldn't really throw the ball naturally or run the ball. And so he was doing a lot of flat-footed, just flinging it out there. And yes, he threw a touchdown pass at the end, but he was I don't know. I question keeping him out there because he was hurt and because he was missing a lot of open receivers near the end. Yeah, and yes, he made that big play to, I think it was a touchdown to Chudzinski, I think, at the end. And but there was many passes I was wondering to myself, they're not getting much pressure on him. Couldn't Dylan Larnigan make those throws? I think he could. So I was wondering why they didn't go to Dylan Larnigan there. But James, he tried. The first half was interesting because he wasn't like the most effective passer, but he was able to do a lot of running, which we've seen him do in the past, and it kept the sticks moving. So that was a good credit to him. Like he was running the ball well, and Jordan McDonald was running the ball well. So that was a positive. But the other side with James, as I said, was he missed a ton of receivers. And when he was missing, I think it was that second half, he threw at least two interceptions that I can remember, which really kind of solidified the loss. He had 244 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So it was an up and down performance for him. I would have rather have seen Larnigan at the end, especially when there was one point I believe I heard he was like 3 for 14 with 2 interceptions in the second half. It was like at that point I was like, you got these other quarterbacks to see, go to them, but they stuck with James, and we see the results there. So this is loss number 7, and this officially eliminates Boston College from bowl eligibility. I mean, if they win out, they could still make it, but they're not going to win out. So this really puts the cherry on the pie of what's been a very disappointing season. Today, in terms of disappointing losses, would be near the bottom for me because when all hope was lost, they showed guts out there. Like this team showed, like some people have been saying, oh, these guys, they've quit. They don't care anymore. They quit. They didn't quit. None of these guys out there look like they quit. Grayson James, who's playing on one leg, did not look like he quit. KP Price, who has been, he's had an up and down season. He had his best game of the season today. He didn't look like he quit. None of those guys look like they quit. And so that's a credit to them. They went toe-to-toe for most of the game with one of the better teams in the ACC, a team that just beat the number 2 team in the country. So you lost. You were not perfect, but you looked much better than you have in the past. So is it something you can build on? I think that's an important thing to talk about. In a moment, I want to go over some of the big plays of this game, and I have a big question about the end of the game that I have about the calls that Bill O'Brien made, and I think a lot of people have mixed opinions. I'll get into all of that in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. These are the moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is KP Price. KP Price, after having a quiet start to his season, had an interception and a fumble recovery, which really put BC back into this game. Without him, I don't think this defense would have made the plays that they did. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. Just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. This is Locked On Boston College A Black. This is our post-game show where we talk about everything that happened. And I think there was a few things I wanted to talk about. One piece with the defense that really stood out to me was, first of all, credit to them, they made some big plays. One play that I wanted to mention was the almost targeting call against Omar Thornton. I just think with Omar Thornton, one of my thoughts that keeps going in my brain is he has had a lot of trouble. He's had his ups and downs this season. Some folks in the media have really they fall in love with his big hits, and that's fine to understand that there's been a bunch of plays that he's been part of the culprits of in terms of missed tackles. So that's part of it. But there was a run by Isaac Brown, and he absolutely obliterated him. And I thought to myself, Omar Thornton is asked, I think, to do more than he should be. Because I think if this defense was playing any better, he would be a very good safety for you. He makes those plays, but like when it gets to the outside, like there was the play that Brown had, that 73-yard run. He takes it outside, and who is the one that misses the tackle? It's Thornton. But there's also guys that were also having issues there. Kamori Dixon missed a tackle there. There was some other problems that were going on that let him speed away. But I think back to, like, if you had other guys there, I really do think Omar Thornton would be a really good asset for this defense, just watching him out there. So that was just something I was thinking of. But back to that play. I think what it really solidifies to me is it's not the missed tackling or it's the issues with that kind of stuff. It's the team speed. Isaac Brown is super fast. Like that's, trying to compare to him is not fair. But I just think it's been something that we've seen a lot of this year, is that the team just doesn't seem fast. Like there's not a lot of fast guys out there. Now, TJ Green should be fast. And you've got, Ashton Cunningham. He should be faster. But this is not a fast team. And that's what's getting them beat on some of these plays. And that's why I think when it's like in terms of like battling in the trenches and like those plays up front, they were doing pretty well. They were getting in Miller Moss's face. They were harassing him. I don't think I'd have to pull up the stats, but I don't think they had how many sacks do they have? They had 1 sack by TJ Green. Oh, right. When TJ Green had that sack. But the piece to me is when it's in space, when there's a guy on the outside and BC just cannot get to that guy. That's what we saw with Brown. And when they get through that first level, it's been an issue as well. So that was one thought I thought about with the defense. I thought the secondary played really well in terms of what we've seen them based off of what we've seen. I mean, Isaiah Ferris had a great pass breakup and then got immediately hurt. I thought the pass defense was far beyond what I expected them to be. So credit to them for that piece. Now, one of the big question marks I had at the end of this game, I had 2. So let's get into the first one. Grayson James playing on one leg. You were down by 7 points, and he was so incredibly ineffective at one point. I get wanting to stick with your guy. I get that you want to be loyal to a guy. Like, you just made a change like last week. Do you really want to switch it back already? That really shows no loyalty to your guy. It doesn't show you have faith in him. But on the other hand, wins are hard to come by. Louisville had all sorts of issues with getting pressure on BC when, for most of it. But they were having issues on the back end with coverage. Larnagin is a much more accurate passer. Yes, he's had his issues, and when the pressure comes, sometimes he has problems with that. But there were guys wide open, and Grayson James was just not hitting them. There was Reed Harris had one. I mean, he threw it so high that Reed Harris couldn't catch it. There was one to Jeremiah Franklin. I saw one to Dawson Pugh that he threw that like bounced, and it was all he had to do was hit him. He was wide open. And then there was that play that he had. It ended up with him throwing it to Chudzinski, but Chudzinski was out of bounds. If you watch the replay of that play, Chudzinski was wide open with no one covering him in the middle of the field, but James was just pumping and pumping and pumping. And there were other guys. I think Pugh was open on the side too. He wasn't doing what he needed to do, especially once his legs were gone. It kind of really impacted what Grayson James can do, because Grayson James is not as accurate as Dylan Larnagin. What makes him more dangerous is his ability to run the ball. We saw that in the first half. But once he loses that, he becomes pretty pedestrian. So he struggled. And near the end of the game, when he was just missing everything. I go back to what I kind of said at the beginning. I don't get why you didn't go to Dylan Larnagin. And maybe it's a team morale type of thing, but you had a good chance there, and you had drives that you could make to solidify that. James just wasn't hitting it. Now, again, I take the L that even with one leg, he had that one drive where he looked great. But everything else, there was a lot of meat left on the bones there. So I thought, especially the end of the game, I put but yikes on there. But if anyone who knows him, the one yikes was that last tackle. I thought when he went down and he came back up, I was like, oh my gosh, he broke his shoulder. The way he was holding it, I was like, oh God. But he got right up and through. So this kid's tough as nails. I was just thinking that there is, these issues that go on. And I wanted to see BC go with Larnigan. Now, I also thought the big issue that I had was the punt at the very end of the game. The punt, I think was it like the 45-yard line? It was long though, too. I think they had like 3rd and 8. My personal opinion, this is me as a football fan. When you have the ball and you're down, you have this opportunity to just finally score a point and you punt it. You end up with like 30 net yards on it. I don't get that at all. Like they said on the telecast, like, oh, BC has a chance to, trust. O'Brien's doing this because he trusts his defense, and that's great. Hey, if you trust your defense, and that's your decision, all the power to you. I just know that you just this defense let up like 400 plus yards and has been giving up tons of yards to everybody that they're playing with. So I look at that and I said, this is again a wasted opportunity because you had the ball and you just give it back. Now I believe they made a stop after that. So O'Brien. Oh no, that was the one that Keon Brown took it, I think. But I look at this and I say that was an opportunity that BC had. And I look at that and say they should have been able to try. I would have lived a lot. I would have slept happier if they were able to try that. And if they failed, they failed. It's a 50-50 proposition. But if you're more aggressive, you go for it there. So that was something I was looking at as well. Now, this is where the game ends. This is where Louisville, they score that touchdown and it just falls apart from there. I think in a moment we're going to come back and I'm going to talk to you guys about my thoughts about where things go from here, because as I said at the beginning, there is an opportunity here to grow and develop a little bit, even if you're just racking up L's. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. It's almost the weekend, time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Boston College Eagles, I will say that KP Price delivered in a big way. He had the interception. I'm going to keep putting him up there. For interception and a fumble return, when the pressure was on, he came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, the performance wasn't a fluke. KP Price is on a streak. And just like KP Price delivered for the Boston College Eagles, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it all up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black of Eagle Insider here. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. Thank you all who are commenting on the side. I appreciate all of you who have your thoughts. You guys can connect over there. I do read them. I read them after the show, and I will connect with you guys later. So let's talk more about the takeaways from this game. Where do things go from here? Well, first of all, I thought BC looks better than they have in weeks past. So obviously we saw them, look completely overwhelmed against Clemson and Pitt, and then they played poorly against UConn. From here, it only gets harder. Unfortunately, Louisville's good, but you're playing teams that are going to be better. You are playing Notre Dame next week. Notre Dame obviously is going to be a really, really tough game for you. We saw what struggles BC had against Isaac Brown and their other running backs today. And what that is going to look like against Jeremiah Love, that is a big problem right there. I'm worried about that next week. But you have some things that you know, as I mentioned, TJ Green looks pretty good. You have all these younger players that need these reps. And maybe there are, you know, I have been saying on the show all week that the wins look like it's going to be hard to come by. But SMU scored 12 points today against Wake Forest. Syracuse is battered. Maybe there's a chance this team can win some games. I'm not there yet, but I'm wondering, I look at what they did today, if they can continue to grow, if they can continue to build on that, maybe they could beat a team. And maybe the SMU prediction I had at the beginning of the year is what comes true. So I look at that and I say, maybe there's something there. I go back, though. I don't want to turn this into a diatribe on Grayson James, but I still think you need to go back to Dylan Larnagin and soon, because these are snaps, and I don't know if it's Notre Dame, because I don't know if Notre Dame is going to be the best opportunity for him to grow from. But I look and I see what Larnagin needs, and this is a chance for him to grow. So you're playing some teams like SMU who's banged up, or Syracuse who has struggled. Maybe you get him in there for those games. Maybe that's the opportunity to grow as well. So, you know, I think there was injuries in this game that are going to probably push some younger guys even more into the starting rotation. We saw Kevin Klein go down. That didn't sound good. Ryan McGow finally got his chance to play. We saw Isaiah Ferris go down, and Quintavious Hutchins. I don't know if they came back in. I didn't get a chance to really see that piece. So those were some injuries that we're going to have to watch for. They're banged up as is. So that's something that we're going to be looking at as well. So any last thoughts? I will look at some comments, see what you guys have to say. And we have a lot coming up. I'm just seeing if there's anything. James should have been benched in the second half. Dig up the most yards led up to a player. Do we make history? I don't know. Has anyone ever heard of Clown College? So, and Mike seems to want to make me, hey, I run my show, so if you don't like it, don't listen. If you guys have some other things that you want to say, face it, there's a talent gap between BC and every other team. And there was just a few other comments here. I just want to make sure I got to what you had to say. And thank you all for joining me tonight. We'll be joined by Mitch Wolf on Monday. He's going to talk to us what he saw, and he was chatting with me, and he was on the Eagle Insider board. We'll talk all about that on Monday's show. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on Eagle Insider. If you're not a VIP, check that out soon. It's going to be a crazy offseason. I keep saying that over and over again. This is, in terms of what BC has to do to make sure that this doesn't happen again in 2026. O'Brien's already starting to leak out things like that. If you heard his radio show and heard his last press conference, he said to us, look, this is we're going to be doing some big things. I think I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it sounded like there's going to be some big things changing this offseason. So that's a positive for BC. And thank you all for joining us today on Locked On Boston College, your team every day.